Good to have you with us on Wednesday's AT Show. Coming up, Nicky Campbell and Mark Morahan talk about their musical partnership and the man who spent 26 years waking up the nation, Sir Terry Wogan's here. But before all that, the day-to-day media circus that surrounds the uneventful lives of Katie Price and Peter Andre. This is Sunday's News of the World, and this is Monday's Sun, and this is Tuesday's Daily Star. And this morning, they continued for 60 years. And while we need a bit of light relief. But why, as a nation, are we obsessed with the goings-on of a glamour model and a pop star? Surely there are bigger and better things we should be worried about or even enjoying. Here to discuss are writer and broadcaster Caroline Faraday, PR guru Mark Borkowski and Sue Carroll. Caroline, are you going to tell me that you need this and you're riveted by it every day?
Well, it's a love-to-hate relationship, isn't it? When you drive down the motorway and there's a car crash on the other carriageway, you have to slow down and take a look. It is total car crash viewing, and it's about the soap opera of someone else's life. And no matter how sort of wrong that seems or how much you kind of think, well, there's other stuff out there, we must be consuming it. We must be constantly wanting it because they're printing it and it's selling newspapers. So, and you just can't help but look. It's like I don't want to look, I don't want to look. I just have a little peek.
Well, Sue, you're the newspaper, you're the Mirror. I mean, is that why it's there? Because you sell copies on it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Caroline's right. You know, newspapers aren't in the business of not selling their product. They wouldn't put something on the front page if they didn't think people were going to pick it up and buy it and read it, and possibly even be repelled by it, but always fascinated. It is a tabloid soap opera. That's what it's turned into. But the problem is, like lots of soap operas, that it has to get worse and worse all the time.
Well, today's was her throwing up. I mean, viewers, please rest assured that when I have a bit of a dicky tummy one morning, I won't call the paper and say, quick, come and snap me for the front page because I'm throwing up. I mean, Mark, do we really need to see that?
Well, obviously, the newspapers decided, the Stars decided to put that in because the audience wants it. I mean, in a way, this reflects what's going on in society at the moment. Well, don't buy the paper. Sue won't be in a job, and Caroline, we won't be here.
Well, maybe it's as Caroline says, then it's like a car crash.
At the end of the day, Jordan is a brand. If you went out into the streets tomorrow and say Jordan, they wouldn't think a country in the Middle East. They would think of a glamour model. And she's done a very good job in generating a huge amount of money. Guilty pleasure or not, thousands of young girls look at Jordan as some sort of icon. I'm sorry to depress you, but that's the truth. And there are people behind that generating huge amounts of money in terms of clothing lines, and there's loads of sort of vampires, paparazzi photographers going out there making money. Not as much money as they might have done, but they still are out there with their digital cameras nailing it. They're bounty hunters.
I do have a sort of sneaking admiration for the fact that she's managing to keep herself. You know, she's this enormous industry, so one has to kind of admire that. But you sort of feel now that, you know, with the breakup and the kids and you worry about those, hang on, hasn't this gone a bit too far, Sue? I mean, I suppose I am being judgmental, but in a way only at home.
Well,
I think, oh dear.
I think it's a bit unfortunate for her. I think she's so involved in selling herself and has always done so, that she... Actually, what's happened recently is that she's alienated a lot of women in particular. Her core fans were women who really admired her for getting on, working class girl, done good, you know, rightly or wrongly, she'd made a lot of money. But now I think the way she helped destroy a marriage and her attitude to her ex-husband has been something that a lot of women don't respect. And I think she doesn't do womankind an awful lot of favours at the moment. I still think it's really...
It's just has to be liked in order to sell her products, and in fact she's not interested whether we like her or not as long as she is in the paper. There's a shock jock in the United States called Howard Stern. They did a survey. Those who didn't like him listened to his show for 10 minutes a day. Those who did like him listened for 10 minutes a day. Those who didn't listened for 20 minutes.
Gosh.
You don't need to be liked.
But crucially, I think that Jordan absolutely depends on the media. It's the identification of who she is. Without that, and I see it quite often, that somebody who's had all that adoration, all that column inches, if they're not in the press, they get terribly schizoid about it. It's a paranoia, it's an urge.
But that tends to lead to kind of self-destruction in the end. So, Caroline, do you think she's actually going to literally almost go off pop? I mean, this could really end in tragedy, I suppose, in many ways, could it? Or am I looking too much on the black side? Will she bounce back?
I think
she's got enough to bounce on.
She has got plenty to bounce on. Let's not dwell on that.
No.
But I think, yes, I think it's certainly going to get worse before it gets better, and I don't see the path away from where she's at the moment. It just seems after drama, and there is that, clearly,
also-
and from us and from her.
And a glee on behalf of the newspapers, presumably, Sue. I mean, do you think, oh, great, she's doing something else. It's another, you know, we'll sell more this week because Jordan's done something daft.
Well, yes, frankly, because she does the most unbelievable things. She says things that you can't imagine anybody ever saying. It is riveting. It is absolutely fascinating. So why would we, as you know, journalists, not want to report it? People are fascinated. And can I just say something else? You know, I met somebody on holiday, a lady who didn't know I was a journalist. She said, do you want to borrow my newspaper? It had a picture of Jordan on. She said, I don't normally read this kind of rubbish. I said, why don't you like it? She then spent an hour telling me every spit and cough about Jordan's life. So, you know, people are fascinated, and they often say they're
So
not.
we're hypocrites, Mark, really. Is that what it is?
Listen, the lessons of history are there. This is not a new phenomenon. I wrote a book on the history of the people, the spin makers of fame for me. There was an interesting woman out in the 1950s who made her name in silent movies, called Gwilly Andre. She was a glamour model, and she didn't move easily from the silent screen to the movies, and she was ignored. And around about 1950, and this is what the rest of the press agents, she took all her various pictures of herself, and she got herself drunk, and she burnt herself alive on this, like some Brunhilde.
Yeah.
So sooner or later, fame is toxic.
I suppose what is coming, well, that's exactly the right thing. I suppose what people are worrying about now is there are these children now who are watching their split parents doing this kind of thing in the papers every day. And as they get that bit older, it will become worse and worse for them. And I suppose that is the reason why most of us, A, can have a laugh at one side, but at the other side, you do tend to worry. Thank you very much. My thanks to Caroline, to Mark, and to Sue. Thanks very much for being here. And your chance